Hey folks, welcome to Moonshift Audio. This week I'm going to show you how to recreate the instrumental from Diet Pepsi by Addison Rae. Here's a preview. I love the production on Addison's recent album. It's minimalist and synth driven, which is already 2 big boxes ticked for me, but it also manages to stay interesting, and some of the sound design choices are a little unusual, which really helps to add interest to the songs. Before we get stuck into this tutorial, I'm just going to introduce myself quickly. My name's Jack. I'm a producer and a mix engineer based in the UK. If you'd like to hear how I can help you take your songs from half finished or almost there to the point where you're actually excited to release them via my production or mixing services, then you can get in touch at moonshiftaudio.com or leave a comment down below. I put out a new video every week, so please do like and subscribe, but for now let's take a look at this backing track. It's worth mentioning that although I use Cubase, there's nothing in this tutorial that wouldn't translate easily to any other software. Alright, let's get stuck in. Alright, so here we are in Cubase, and the first thing I want to look at is this main lead sound, because the whole track is sort of built around this quite interesting modulated sort of keys kind of sound, and it sounds like this. So I used Serum 2 for this, and what I basically did was load up quite a simple kind of organy keys kind of patch that had vaguely the right kind of timbre. I got that off a splice, and then I added some modulation over the top. So here's what it sounds like with all of that modulation turned off. Almost sounds like a cheap kind of drawbar organ kind of thing. And I added some modulation, and I use LFOs for this. I can take a quick look at the modulation I added by jumping into the matrix, and you'll see that LFO 1 is adjusting filter 1 level, and filter 1 level is this volume here on the output of that filter, and everything comes through filter 1, the sub, the oscillators and the noise. So essentially that acts as a global volume for the patch, and if we start to drag some you can hear this LFO now affecting the volume. I didn't use a standard shape, I sort of dragged these curves myself. I just found that having it like that, you know, that's a slightly more abrupt pull down on the volume, and it just makes it more of a punchy kind of shape. And the last thing that you should know about this is that I'm using LFO 3 as an aux source, and that's basically defining how much of that wobble is happening. If I turn that off, you can hear that wobble is happening right the way through. Whereas the sound in the original production kind of has a bit of a clean start. That wobble isn't there all the way through, and so this just gives you a nice clean intro to every note. And the other bit of modulation that I put in was just a little bit of LFO 2 on the filter frequency, and that's just brightening it up, opening up the filter just a little bit as we go through each bar, and that's just helping to kind of give a bit more movement, a little bit more interest to the sound. Notes wise, very, very simple, just some basic chords. And there's a little bit of production on this. There's just cutting out a little bit of the mud. You can hear this without. I played around with the chorus that I'd ended up not using. Trash is definitely helping though. I'm doing quite a lot of distortion here. So that's the sound without that on. Thins it out a lot. That convolve module might add a little bit of width. Widen it up a bit, sounds quite nice. Another EQ after we've gone through the distortion stages. Just thinning that out a bit more. Going into a tape, it's another stage of distortion. Just roughing up a bit, and then a tiny bit of reverb. Don't need loads, but it's just to give that a little bit of space. And that's basically the lead sound. We can take a look now at the only other sound that's present in the intro, and that is this kind of Rhodesy, plucky kind of sound. So I started off with this kind of Rhodes keys type sound. This is actually from my Retro Serum presets pack. There's a link to download that pack of presets for free in the description of this video. And it's literally just playing super simple partial chords. A little bit of an EQ on that just to take out the very low end. And I've layered that up with some plucked strings. The original production of this has got a really nice effect on the pluck, which is at the start of each bar. And it's a reverb with quite a big pre-delay. So if I just turn this off. You know, a normal pre-delay range for a track like this, depending on what element it is, you might have like between 20 and maybe up to 50 milliseconds. Could even have 0. But by putting it way up to like 180 odd milliseconds, kind of loosely, and I deliberately didn't do this bang on an eighth, you could actually drop a delay plugin before the reverb and run this on an aux send if you wanted to have an exact eighth note delay. But it's just a little bit loose, a little bit sloppy. And you hear that reverb landing about an eighth note after each note. And it's just a really nice effect. I really like what they've done with that. So with the pluck and the lead, that's basically our intro. And we get into a verse. And we bring in the drums. And again, what I really love about the production on this track is that it's super simple, quite basic loops, nothing fancy or showy, but it is interesting. So we can have a quick look at the drums that I loaded in for this. I pulled in a few snares, a few kicks, we'll get to that later. A shaker sound, some glitchy options, and a couple of hats. And I ended up using this snare. Nothing wild going on with this, we're just tone shaping it a bit. Quite a lot of distortion, just to help that cut through. And then a bit of a bump there. Running right the way through, got an 808 hat with an open 808 hat, and there's a shaker that comes in off to the right, just using decapitator again to add some harmonics and bring that through. And then we got this really nice glitch hat sound, which is made up of 2 different drums. Got this nice kind of electronic, glitchy kind of pop. And quite a bright, sort of minimalist hi-hat. And if you listen to them together, it's just a nice groove that works really well. There's one more element in the verse, which is just a nice little run on that same Rhodes. And that comes halfway through each verse. So we can listen to the verse. And now we're getting into the chorus, where we bring in the last few elements of this track. So we got the bass, which is a Reese type bass. I got this one from a pack of kind of liquid drum and bass presets from Culture Samples. They make some really, really lovely presets. And this Reese, it's just so smooth. I really, really like it. And I'm compressing that quite hard just to help with the kind of inconsistencies in volume. It's got a nice bit of movement in the stereo field. Oh, it's just great. And it sits under this track so nicely. And that's just playing root notes. And I am also just using a Soothe and a Pro C compressor just to duck that when the kick hits. You'll see both of these. Just ducking a little bit to help make some space for that. And speaking of the kick, this is the point in the chorus where the kick comes in, and this was a pretty basic. This is one of Oliver's kicks from Spice. Really, really great sounds that Oliver make. I have done some compression and just boosting the low end of that. It's a little bit distorted by this clipper which is on the drum bus. Might just loosen that off a tiny bit. Also on the drum bus is a Pultec, and I'm using that to put quite a big boost to the top end. Like, the drums are actually pretty bright in the original of this track, and rather than putting an EQ on every drum, why not just slap one on the bus? You can also do the Pultec trick here where you're boosting at 10k and also pulling a little bit out. Just stops to kind of have too much of a build up at that particular frequency. You just get a nice curve that way. There's also a layer on the snare here. I brought in this clap sound. You want to hear it without. Just adding a little bit of high-end presence onto the top of that snare, and that means that when you've got particularly like a big vocal stack like Addison has in this track sitting on top of that, it would just help the snare to cut through, and it also just helps to add a little bit of energy to this track in the chorus. After this, we drop back to the verse, exactly the same as the first verse. So we do bring in the kicks halfway through. And there you have it, a really, really nice, simple backing track, but one that works so well, especially behind Addison's excellent vocal on this track. That's it for this week, but please do like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, resources and downloads from me at Moonshift Audio. Till next time.